There's two kinds of basic styles in Word, paragraph styles and attribute styles. Does anybody do the thing of where you have, like the text example that I gave earlier, where you're picking text and you're making it bold and you're making it color and you're doing a couple different things? Is anybody doing that kind of thing? Okay, then I will show you how to use the attribute styles as well. Paragraph styles apply to the entire paragraph. They contain things like font type, font size, spacing, indents, is it going to be centered, left aligned, right aligned, all that kind of stuff. It affects the entire paragraph. Attribute styles affect only the selected characters, and all of the attributes apply just to the font itself. So the type, the size, the color, that kind of thing. If you want extra spacing between letters, you can put that into the style, but I will show you both. First thing here is I want to show you how to turn on your hidden characters. In the beginning, the hidden characters tend to really confuse people sometimes because it's like, whoa, cognitive overload, instant cognitive overload. There's lots of stuff going on. But the beauty of having your hidden characters turned on is I can see whether spacing was built into a style, which gives me that pretty extra spacing after the paragraph like I like it, or whether somebody hit the enter key a bunch of times. And your hidden characters toggle is on the ribbon, and here's the ribbon where it says clipboard, font, paragraph. That's your ribbon. That's your ribbon in Word. PowerPoint also has a ribbon. And your ribbon is divided into different groups. Notice that there are a few vertical lines on the ribbon periodically. Those vertical lines divide the ribbon into different groups. So on the far left side, you have your clipboard group, and you have your font group, your paragraph group, your styles group going across. Now, often, your groups will have a little box in the bottom right corner that has an arrow on it. Anytime you see that box with an arrow, that means that there is a window associated with that group, and by clicking on that little box with the arrow, it will open up that whole window. We're going to be using that in a minute with styles. That's kind of a little quick tour of the ribbon for you. Your hidden characters, your toggle for your hidden characters is in the top right corner of your paragraph group. It looks like a big backwards P. It looks like a paragraph mark. You guys are probably all smart enough to know what a paragraph mark is. Not everybody I teach is. But I'm just going to click on this paragraph mark tool here, and notice now I'm seeing all kinds of other stuff. These are your hidden characters. That is technically called your show hide toggle for the hidden characters. So what am I looking at here? So the big backwards P, your paragraph mark, that's where you've hit the enter key. That's what that is. Spaces come through as little dots. If you haven't really expanded, you'll find out they're actually little squares, but they're little dots, basically. Those are your space bar. If you hit the tab key, it's an arrow. That's a tab key. Now, it's really useful knowing that you can turn these on and see what's going on in your document. By the way, not calling anybody out here, but one of the things that those of us who do alternate format work for students who are blind and visually impaired, first thing that we do when we've got a document from a faculty member is we turn that on and then laugh. It's like space, 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 tab, 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 enter, enter, enter. It's like, really? And then there'll be a blank page at the end because they've hit the enter key like 12 times and just, I don't know why that blank page is there. You turn on your hidden characters, you will know why it is there. So I really recommend, I know it's awkward in the beginning, but I really recommend getting used to it because it lets you know what's actually happening in your document. So I'm going to show you 3 different ways to apply a heading 1 style. Very easy. Right up here at the top of the document, I went back up to the top of the document. By the way, that's Control Home for you keyboard shortcut fans. Really handy one. Control End, by the way, goes to the bottom. I use those two a lot. You just have to have your cursor flashing in the text that you want to apply a paragraph style to. And it's actually better with a paragraph style just to have your cursor in there as opposed to having the text selected. It's a little nerdy, but if you're not careful and you haven't selected the entire paragraph with the paragraph mark, you can sometimes accidentally apply it just as an attribute style where it just applies the look of it without actually applying the whole style. So better just to have your cursor flashing in there rather than selecting part of it. Okay, so with my cursor flashing, where it says as a test heading 1, I can come up to my styles group on the ribbon, and this is also called the styles gallery. And where it says heading 1, I can just click. Notice it does have a mouse over feature. That confuses people a little bit. Sometimes I've had people say, well, it doesn't work. Well, it will work if you click on it. So you have to actually click on it. And my favorite keyboard shortcut, Control Z. And I'm going to have to do it a couple times here. Okay, so that's one way to apply your heading 1 style. Another way, which honestly tends to be my preferred way because I like having my styles pane open because I do a lot with it. Remember on the bottom right-hand corner of our styles group, we have that little box with the arrow. I'm going to go ahead and click on that little button there on the bottom right corner of the styles group, and that will open my styles pane. So my styles pane is now open here on the right-hand side. Yours looks like by default it's set to show all styles, which is really, really nice. If on your own personal device or your work device that you're using, if you're not seeing all of those styles, it's just a choice. It's down here in the bottom right corner of your styles pane. You have the options button. If I click on options, select styles to show, I can select all styles. If it's set in anything else, I would just go to all styles so that you can see everything. Because recommended is just sort of silly. And then I like to alphabetize, so I just say alphabetical. By the way, if you ever have a whole bunch of other stuff coming up in your styles pane, like Arial plus 11, Arial bold plus 9, all of that garbage, that's all formatting. And that's because you've checked those boxes in the middle here where it says select formatting to show styles. Just uncheck them, and it will get rid of all of that. Notice in the bottom of this options window here, I have a radio button that says only in this document, new documents based on this template. This is the keys to the kingdom for saving you time. Once you have your styles the way you want them, you'll be choosing new documents based on this template. After that, the styles you want the way you like them is what's going to come up in the styles pane, not Microsoft's version. Not now, because we have to fix them first. But once you've got them fixed the way that you want them, then you would say OK. In order to use my styles pane to apply the heading 1, again, I have just my focus there with my cursor. I come over to my styles pane area here, and I scroll down until I see my headings. Look at all those headings you have. You wouldn't know that you have that many based on the styles gallery up there, but you have a bunch of headings. So I'm just going to click on heading 1. That's literally all you do is just click where it says heading 1, and it applies a heading 1. So that is another way to apply a heading 1, and I'll deal with the what it looks like issue in just a second. I'm going to show you one more way to apply a heading 1, and that is using your keyboard shortcuts, because this is a super easy keyboard shortcut. If you hold down your Control and Alt key, or I think on the Mac it's Command and Option key, and then tap the number 1, and it's the number 1 above your letters, not the number 1 over on the numpad. I'm going to scroll down a little bit right below the bear. It says then again heading 2. It tells you what to make it a heading 2. Anybody want to guess the keyboard shortcut? Control Alt 2. Look at that. It's really easy. Then right below that paragraph we have a heading 3. What is that one? Control Alt 3. That is it. Okay, so let's please go through this document. You're going to see it's going to tell you what it's supposed to be. And let's make our heading, add our heading styles. So not to be outdone, heading 2. That's going to be a heading 2. Right below our poppies, we have a heading 3. It says a bulleted list heading 3. I'll show you how to deal with bullets in just a minute. And then right below our little starburst, we have another heading 3. Scroll down below our little sunbeam there. There's another heading 3. There's usually one every couple paragraphs. Right below our little blue, somebody said I should call that a moonbeam to go with the sunbeam. There's a heading 2. And then scrolling down onto the next page, there's a table. Right above the table, there's a heading 3. There's another heading 3 right below the table. I think there's one more. Yeah, right below the next, or right above the next heading. A table, there's heading 3s both above and below. So are we good with applying styles? Pretty easy. I want to show you how to apply your list and your bulleted list styles. So I'm going to scroll back up here so I can see my bear, or you can use your Control Home to get back up to the top. And then right below your bear, there's a list. It says, just right above it says a list for heading 3. So this is one where when I'm applying a style to multiple paragraphs, I can go ahead and select them. I don't need to do them one at a time. And I don't need to select the entire thing. I just need to select a portion of the paragraph. It's smart enough to know that if I'm selecting across multiple paragraphs, that I'm applying a paragraph style, not an attribute style. And so in this case, I'm going to actually make this a numbered list because I want to use it for something later. Now, all of the list styles, be it bulleted list, regular list, numbered list, is all under L for lists. So it's kind of like, when I was first in college and I had to take the library course, the quarter of a unit or whatever, how to use your library. And they said, okay, well, you got to learn how to look things up. Is it wood rat or is it rat comma wood? Well, this is sort of the rat comma wood. It is list comma bullet, list comma number. So just think list rather than B for bullet and you'll be okay. Okay, so I'm going to make this a list number. I'm going to make this a numbered list. I'm just going to call it list number. Now, notice you have list number 1, list number 2, list number 3. What is all of that? Those are indents. So if you want to indent at 1, it's a list number 2. You want to indent, a couple times, it's list number 3. Accessibility doesn't care. We don't care about how many indents you use. You just need to pick whichever one you want and use your list style. Right below our poppies, we have a bulleted list. Okay, that's cool. So now we just select those and we say list bullet. Or if you want to try list bullet 2, list bullet 3, just to play with it and see what it looks like, that's fine. And then right below our starburst, we have another numbered list. So we select those and we again say list number. And look what happened. This is why people don't like using styles. I don't want that to be 4. I want it to be 1. So how do I fix that? I go to the number 4, which is my offending number that I want to change, and I right-click on that number 4. And notice what you have on the little mini menu that comes up when I right-click. Restart at 1. By the way, goes the other direction too. It does occasionally get it wrong where you need to continue numbering, and then you just right-click and say continue numbering. Well, what if I don't want 1? What do I want ABC? Well, this is where you can come up to this area on your formatting toolbar, and if you click where you have your little numbers there, click right next to it, get that little down arrow, you can have it as 1 period, you can have it as 1 parentheses, you can use Roman numerals, you can use capital ABC, lowercase ABC, whatever. Pick what you want. So I'm going to select now this heading 1, and what would we like instead? I mean, for me, I don't like that blue. That's not an accessible blue in the first place. It should be black. I'm going to make it black. So all of those sorts of changes live up on your ribbon under the font up here for that kind of thing. So I can go and I'm going to change my color to black. Auto is black. I might be okay with 16 point. Maybe I want it to be all caps, so I can change that there. Maybe I want it to have a line underneath it. That's actually in the borders, but I can do that if I want. I can also go into my paragraph. I'm going to put it bold too. I can go into my paragraph here, my paragraph group, and I can say instead of alignment left, maybe I want it centered. So I can do all those sorts of things to it. If I want to put a border under it, that's again here in your paragraphs group. Looks on the bottom right corner of your paragraph group. It looks like a little window shade to me, kind of. That's you can put a bottom border on it. Doesn't matter. All of this is fine. None of this matters with accessibility. I don't like that font. I don't like Cambria. I'm not a fan of Cambria. Personally, I like Verdana, so I'm going to use Verdana. You can use whatever you want. Make it whatever you want. So there we go. There's my heading 1. And this is probably what most of you are doing now. But I don't want to have to do that every time. I'm going to make it so that is how my heading 1 looks every single time. So the way that I do that is I am going to come over into my styles pane to my heading 1. And when I mouse over my heading 1, we didn't do this before, but when I mouse over my heading 1, in addition to all kinds of information that you can ignore for the moment, I get a little blue box with a little black down arrow. Does everybody see that when you mouse over heading 1? You're getting that little box on it. I want to click on that little down arrow. When I click on that little down arrow, look at this magical phrase right at the top. Update heading 1 to match selection. So all that work that I just did, I'm now going to say, I want my heading 1 to look like that. And now when I go back in and look at that heading 1, which is under Modify, that will open it all so you can look at it. Look at that. Verdana, bold, all that stuff I just told it to do is now built into the style. And now this is where, once you have it the way you want it, choose that radio button, New Documents, based on this template. And what that means is the next time you start a brand new document, it's not going to be Microsoft's heading 1 anymore. It's going to be your heading 1. Now, I know with your styles, you have something weird like every heading has to be the same size or something. Or oh, you can always do that. But you want to... Well, you can always make your own styles. But it's better to modify the one that's there. But I know there's some kind of style that, which is a little weird to me, but all the headings are the same size. And you can do that. The headings don't have to look different. You can make them look however you want them to look. It's what they're called that the assistive technology cares about. It's what they're called that HTML and style sheets care about. They don't care how they look. Okay, so what I did was, so once I got things the way that I wanted them to be, I went to my styles pane over here, to my heading 1, and click on that little down arrow that's on the right-hand side of heading 1. And right there you have Update Heading to Match Selection. But then to set your one and done button, you go to Modify, and then you can set the radio button down. Every single style that you change, they're independent enough that you do have to do it on each of them. But you only have to do it once. Okay, now, here's the beauty of this. So I'm going to now look at my heading 2, and I'm not really fond of that italic. I'm going to get rid of that italic. Maybe I'm okay with everything else, but I don't want the italic. So again, I'm going to go down to my heading 2, click on my little down arrow, update heading 2 to match selection. Watch what happens when I do this. Boom, the other heading 2 change. This is how it's going to save you an enormous amount of time. You no longer have to go to each of them, select them, make them bold, make them bigger, make them whatever it is that you want. Literally, one and done. Heading 3 really, I think, is pretty awful. So I'm going to take my heading 3 and I'm also going to make that one Verdana, and maybe I'm going to make it bold and I'm going to make it black, but otherwise I'm kind of okay with that one. And again, go to my heading 3, update, and now all those heading 3s that we did in here, look, they've all changed, every single one of them. And again, if that's the way you want your styles from now on, you just go into the style itself, choose that new documents based on this template. Now, it is new documents. It will not affect old documents. If we have time, I can show you how to modify old documents, but you probably don't need to because you've already made them look the way you want them. But this will save you a huge amount of time. So if I were reading this with a screen reader, I could literally here, as a test, heading 1, I could hit, next heading, and then it would go then again heading 2, next heading, a list for heading 3. It would jump everything in between. Otherwise, they're literally stuck with reading word for word the whole thing. Okay, I want to show you one more thing here about using styles that is added value for you, and that is how you can use the navigation pane, which is a very cool thing, which will save you all kinds of time. But I do need to have my headings in here in order to make the navigation pane work. So the navigation pane really only does cool stuff if you have already applied your heading styles. So to open your navigation pane, it is under your View tab. In your View, oops, sorry, I got caught on the chair. My View tab, it's most of the way toward the right-hand side of your ribbon called View. There is a checkbox, a group of checkboxes in your Show group, which is the second group from the left in this particular ribbon. It has ruler, grid lines, navigation pane. By the way, ruler can be really useful if you are doing decimal tabs and things like that. Really helpful. But in this case, I'm just going to check the navigation pane to show you this feature. So look what we have here in the navigation pane. Here's all my headings that I just added. If I want to go to one of those headings, I just click on it and boom, I am there. I am at, which is essentially what your screen reader users are doing. What's really interesting is screen readers have had this functionality for like over 20 years. This is fairly new in Microsoft Word. So they kind of lifted it. I'm waiting for them to do the links list because screen readers actually can pull up a list, tell me all the links in this document. I mean, that seems pretty handy, but they haven't implemented that for us sighted folks yet. You got to use a screen reader right now to get that. If I wanted to change, so say here I have a bulleted list above my little yellow starburst and a numbered list below it. If I said, oh, I don't like that order, I want to change the order. Literally, in the navigation pane, all I have to do is click and hold and drag, and boom, it reorders that whole section, which is very, very cool. Yeah, so if you change your mind, you say, oh, no, I don't want that there. And if I want to move those heading 2s around, I just have to collapse them down, and then I can move those too. Boom, that whole section, including all of the subheads, is going to get moved. And I'm going to undo that just so that it's back like what yours is. Very, very cool, but it only works if you've used your headings. So headings are so valuable for you. It is just kind of amazing, honestly, how valuable they are. Structure, styles. Use your styles, especially your heading styles and your list styles. Oh, I did forget to show you something. I'm going to go back in a second. Pay attention to your font size and type. You don't want it too small. If you find yourself like getting down to 8-point font size to fit it all on one page, probably not a good idea. People do it all the time, but yeah, not the best idea. The enter key for spacing. I forgot to show you how to do that one. So if, say, here with my poppy, if I wanted all of the text that's above my poppy to be down there with my poppy, instead of going enter, 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 what I can do is insert a page break, and that forces a page break. There's a couple ways to do that. You can go under your Insert tab. That's one way to do it. But this keyboard shortcut is so simple. You just hold down the Control key while you're hitting the Enter key. So regular Enter gives you a paragraph break. Control Enter gives you a page break. You got to hold them down at the same time. Hold down Control and then tap Enter. And notice that with my hidden characters turned, or my hidden symbols turned on, I can see that page break there. And I can just see, oh, I don't need that there anymore. Grab it, delete, boom, done, good to go. Very, very easy. Much better for accessibility than if you do the Enter, Enter, Enter thing. But the other kind of break that you can use, rather than going space, space, space to force a word down to a next line, is a line break. The line break is equally as easy. You hold down the Shift key and hit the Enter. So Enter gives you a paragraph break. Control Enter gives you a page break. Shift Enter gives you a line break. Why would you want a line break? Well, sometimes you want a word to go down to the next line, but you don't want a new paragraph. So it's very easy. It's called a forced line break. It looks like, I always think it looks kind of like a little kitty with their tail up, you know, when they want their breakfast. It's like a little arrow with a tail. That is your forced line break. That is Shift Enter to get that. There's a bunch more keyboard shortcuts in your handout. If you want to work back through this on your own to review, to make sure you got everything, you can literally just work back through your handout. Let's go on to T is for table. So the big thing with tables, the really biggest thing with tables is marking the header row. And by the header row, I mean that top row that tells you what the heading is for each column. That is called your header row. Now, currently, in the version of Microsoft Word that you guys have here on campus, there is no way to mark the first column as a header. You can do it in Adobe Acrobat Pro. You can do it in Canvas. Literally, you run your accessibility, and tables are great in Canvas. I mean, if you want to do a table in your course, I would just build it in Canvas. I mean, you can always copy stuff from cell to cell to get it in there, but I would not try to import it. They don't necessarily work really well coming in from Word. But once they're there, same thing. I would, yeah, but you can copy what's in the cells and paste it in Canvas, but I would build the table itself inside of Canvas. It just handles it a little bit better. But you don't need to worry about marking the header cells when you first build it in Canvas. Just wait and run your accessibility checker. And in the accessibility checker, it will say, I found a table. Is the first row a header row? Is the first column a header column? And you just check the box and say yes to both. Boom. It marks them for you. You're done. It's like so easy. It's really quite, it's a thing of beauty. It's really, it's like amazing. So the other thing with tables is we want to be careful about merging cells. And merging cells is when you take two cells and put them together to make one cell. You can do a little bit. So I had somebody who was teaching biology, and she said, well, you know, we do experiments where we might have, say, with a particular substrate, and we're trying this and this and this on it, and so we want all that under that substrate we're trying, or whatever. That's okay, because you're essentially putting, you know, 2 or 3 headings together over one column. It can handle that. What it can't handle is when you do that, and then further down you like cross those by connecting a couple other things, and then someplace else you do some other weird connecting thing. It doesn't do so well with that. And the reason is, and the reason you mark your header row is because when you've marked your header row, the screen reader goes, oh, I see we have a header row. And it will read that header row associated with each of those cells in that column. So in other words, if I have something like a list of various different properties and how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms and what car garage it is and, you know, all of that stuff, if I just read straight across, I'm going to hear maybe the address and then 5, 3, 2.5. What the heck? I have no idea what that is. But if you've marked the header row, then it's going to say address, bedrooms, 5, you know, garage, 2.5, bathrooms, and it will announce it each time. Now, if your first column is something like that where it's just an address, it's not as big a deal if you're just working in Word. You don't have to worry so much about not being able to mark that column, because it's always, the screen reader always reads across in tables. That is the way it reads tables. Columns it reads down like you would, tables it reads across, so it's always going to announce that first column anyway. However, if you are doing a data table, and by a data table I mean something where you've got a lot of numbers in it, and you need to be able not only to read across, but you need to be able to read down. You need to be able to explore the table by jumping around in it here and there. That's a data table. If you have a data table, you really do need to mark that first column. And if you're just working Word to PDF, you would need to learn to mark it in PDF. Or, easy button, just do it in Canvas. Do it in Canvas. It's automatic. It will do it for you. The other thing that's kind of peculiar to Word is I'm going to show you how to keep your rows from breaking across the page. I had one faculty member who used a lot of tables, and she said she literally would spend hours getting her table on one page. But then, of course, if you go in and make any changes, it's not on one page anymore. It's just a checkbox. You're going to be amazed at how easy it is. If you don't want it to break across the page, it's just a checkbox. Unfortunately, the default is to have it break across the page. So what I generally do, because I use tables a lot, I'm that graphics person, what I generally do is I'll go in and I'll change the default for the table so it does not break across the page. And then if I need an individual row to break across the page, I'll just adjust that one row so that I don't have to deal with the whole column. Because what will happen sometimes is you'll have part of a cell on one page and you might have one word on the next page. And it's just so annoying. By the way, screen readers don't care. That's for the rest of us. And then rather than using tabs, unless you need a decimal tab, if you need a decimal tab, you need a decimal tab. There's no substitute for a decimal tab. My guess is most of you are not using decimal tabs anyway, but better than tabs is columns. If you just want, let's say you have a multiple choice test and they have to select from a whole bunch of different vocabulary words and you want them in 3 columns just so they don't take up as much room. You just select them and make them into columns. Much better than doing the tab, tab, tab thing. I will show you how to do that. Very, very simple. Having that header row marked, which is what accessibility is all about, allows you to see the header row at the top of every single page of the table. So you can have a 20-page table. It doesn't matter. At the top of every single page, it's going to repeat that header row so that you know how to read that column. Really incredibly beneficial for all of your students being able to use it. In order to mark the header row in this table, I need to click with the mouse. I need to click in that header row. Now, one of the things that confuses people about working with tables in Microsoft Word is that you do not see your tools for working on tables until you're inside of the table. And by the way, you do have to be in the layout view, which is what this is, your print layout view. You must be in the layout view in order to get all of your table tools. If you're in draft view, you will not be able to access all of the table tools. Now, most people don't work in draft view, so it's not an issue. But those of you who do, just be aware of that. You do need to be in your print layout view. So as soon as I click in the table, now on the far right-hand side of my ribbon, up there in my tabs, I see Table Tools, and it's over 2 tabs. It's over the Design tab and Layout tab. Notice that does not supersede your other Design and Layout tab that apply to the whole document. You still have those, so be careful of that. That's a little confusing. But the little darker blue area is showing you this is Design and Layout just for tables. Okay, so now that I have my Table Tools visible, what I want to do is go under my Layout tab in the Table Tools, the Layout tab in Table Tools, and over here on the right-hand side, look at that, top right, repeat header row. It is that simple. Watch what happens now when I mark my header row. So I click in the header row. You have to click in the header row. This will not work if you don't click in the header row. Click in the header row, go under my Layout, repeat header row. Boom, look at that. Now my header row is again repeated at the top of the next page. Good with that? And that is what we need to do for accessibility, but honestly, you need to do it for usability. Okay, now the other thing is we got this first row, which is really messy, so what do we do about that? So in order to change my table so that the rows don't break across the page, I need to select my table. Your easy button for selecting your table is once you've clicked anywhere in your table, you will see there's a little 4-headed arrow in the top left corner of the table. If I click on that little 4-headed arrow, it automatically selects the entire table. But it didn't select the header row. What's going on there? That is sort of a header row that's there for demonstration purposes only. You cannot interact with it here. That's why it's not selected. The only way you can interact with it is at the top of the document. So if you are ever working on a table that goes across like multiple pages, and you see something and think, I need to change that header row, you must go to the very tippy top of the table. And I've done this, where I'm like on page 12 and I go, oh gosh, I've got a typo in the header row, and I try and interact with it, and I'm like, oh right, got to go to the top of the table. It's just the way that they do it. Okay, so now that I've selected the entire table, I'm still here under my Table Tools layout, but now I want to go to the other side. So the far right side had my repeat as header rows. Now I'm going to go to the far left side, Table Properties. By the way, you can also do both of these by right-clicking. So I'm going to go under my Properties, and this is a row that we're concerned about, so it is a row property that we want to look at. So I'm going to go to the row properties for this table. So notice you have tabs there for table, row, column, etc. And, ooh, alt text, we'll get there in a minute. And I'm going to go to my row properties, and I'm going to uncheck the box that says allow row to break across page. I literally just uncheck that checkbox and say OK, and then it forces, I would have to play with this a little bit to get that header down there with it, but then it forces that row to be all together on the next. Make that a little bit prettier. Okay, so now let's look at that alt text there. So again, if I go to my table, I select my table, and this was under Table Tools Layout, under Properties. We do have alt text. Well, what is alt text on a table? Alt text on a table could be as simple as just what the table's about. Usually we don't just repeat the title of the table. You usually say just a little bit about, just put it in different terms, basically. The other thing that you can do, though, in a table, one faculty member said to me one time, she used tables a lot, but she said she often, in order to make everything fit, would make up abbreviations. And she wasn't sure that they would make sense to somebody using a screen reader. Because remember, it doesn't necessarily know that it's supposed to read letter by letter. And so EST instead of established becomes S, which might be a little confusing. You know, Women's College, Est 1901. It's like, what? So she said, can I put that information into the description and let the screen reader user know I'm using this, you know, or this particular symbol or whatever? That's fine. In this case, this is just laws related to disability is what my alt text is going to be. Again, no spell check in here. So if you want to type it first in Word and then copy and paste it in there so you don't have to worry, that's fine. And then I will say OK. So that is really, those are the things that you need to do to make your tables accessible. Now, we were talking before about the fact that people sometimes are tempted to use tables to get things to stay where you want them to be. We kind of discourage that. The screen reader is expecting anything that's set up like a table to have a header row. Now, I'm going to give you a little sneaky workaround here. Sometimes there's really just no way to get something the way you want it easily without using a table. And if that is the case, put a header row on that table. Put a header row that makes sense on that table, and then make it white on white. Nobody else will see it, but your screen readers will read it. Screen readers can read white text on a white background because they're not reading what you see anyway. They're reading what lives underneath the hood. So I was working with a library one time, and they basically had a setup where they would have a picture of the book, and then they had a little description about the book, and that was how they had this set up. And they had 2 columns side by side of book description, book description. So that's what we did, is we just did book 1, description 1, book 2, description 2, or column 2, whatever. I don't know. We came up with something that made sense at the time. That kind of doesn't. But we came up with something that made sense, did it white on white, and then they were able to both have that as, it was mostly intended to be a printable flyer, but also they wanted to be able to distribute it to everybody on campus. And so that was a way to kind of do a workaround, and that is actually legal. You can do that. Of course, you'd have to put alt text, right, on each of those book covers, but that's really easy because it's just the title of the book, which, remember, screen readers can't read a picture. It wouldn't know without that alt text anyway. So it worked out. So sometimes you can do kind of funny little workarounds like that. But just to be aware, if you're using a table, it must have a header row. It doesn't have to have the first column as a header column, but it has to have a header row. That's required. I want to show you, for those of you who do like the side-by-side look, I want to show you how to use your columns. So I'm going to start out here. I have population growth after World War I, or before and after World War II, whatever. Okay, if I want those side by side instead of on top of each other the way that they are, the trick with doing columns is you must select the text first. That's really important. Otherwise, you can end up with some random column thing like your whole document suddenly is in columns. You'll just do it once. Remember, Control-Z is your friend. Undo. Most things you can undo. Okay, so once I've selected that, this is actually a tool that's under your Layout tab. And that's not too hard to remember because if you think about, okay, well, I want to change how it looks, which means that's your layout is how it looks. I want to change the layout, so I'm going to go under my Layout tab. And then notice on the first group here, your page setup group, you have this big button that says Columns with a little black down arrow. I'm going to click on that button for columns. It has a number of preset columns. one column, which is the default, 2 columns, 3 columns. Then it has something called left and something called right. Notice those are different weightings. The left is very narrow and with the right column on the right, and the other one, the right is very wide with the narrower column on the left. So you have those that you can work with as well. In this case, I'm going to go down to more columns and show you. You can get very, very specific with exactly how you set this up. So you have number of columns you can pick. Maybe I want more than 3 columns. Maybe I've got, you know, a lot of short words and I want to have 4 columns. You can do 4 columns. It doesn't matter. Now I'm going to go with 2. So you can see how to work with 2 here, which is what most people want. And then, so my number of columns now is 2. And then down below it has width and spacing. So what does it mean by that, width and spacing? So width is the column width. Spacing, in publishing or in doing book design, we would call that the gutter. It's the space in between. Microsoft has some very unusual terminology for stuff, like smart quotes. I happen to know with this because I know that I increased the size of the text in this document by using the font that I did. I need to change my spacing to get them side by side. Otherwise, they wrap, the word wraps. So I'm actually going to set this down at 0.2 for spacing. And notice when I change the spacing, it automatically adjusts the width, which is kind of cool. So you don't have to do both. And then I'm going to say OK, and there we go. Now they're side by side. Now, of course, if you ever have columns go really wrong, undo is your first recourse. But I've also really messed myself up so badly, I just select the whole document and make it 1 column again. So you always have that backup if it's not quite going the way that you had hoped. So that's perfectly fine for accessibility. The only difference between doing that and doing a layout table, which we discourage, is that columns, and it wouldn't matter here, but columns are read down and then over to the next column. Tables are read across. So there may be a time when you really want it read one way or the other, and that may influence your decision of which one you choose. But in terms of just making things side by side, better to use columns. Okay, I'm going to scroll up a little bit here. I have this blue graphic right above where the tables area is. So I'm going to select the text and the graphic. And now I'm going to put the text and the graphic next to each other. So I'm going to go up to my columns. And in this case, I think which works the best? I think left works the best. Now, before I do this, I want to just point out this graphic is centered. Notice that this graphic is centered. I used my center align tool in my paragraph group to align this graphic. And that will have an impact in a minute. So that's why I'm pointing that out. So I'm going to choose left. Notice they're a long ways apart. The reason they're a long ways apart is because I have that graphic center aligned. So it's now center aligning it into that wide column. If I don't want it center aligned, I can just click on the graphic, go back to my Home tab to my paragraph group, and in your paragraph group, right up here in your formatting options in your paragraph group, notice right now it's on center align, I just click left, and it will left align it. If I want them even closer, I can play with the spacing of this column. The easiest way, I think, to do that, for those of you who are a little more sophisticated, is to go under your view and turn on your rulers. Because once I have my rulers on, I can literally just select this text, and I can go up onto my ruler. You've got your little indent here. I can just literally move it. It takes some playing with it in the beginning to get it the way that you want. But once you've learned how to do it, it's actually pretty easy. So the other thing that I want to show you is sometimes people say, well, you know, the reason that I like text boxes is because I want to put a box. I want a box around my text so that it pops out. It's like, okay, that's fair. The way that you can do that and keep your accessibility. So I'm going to select here where it says decorative graphics are sometimes just pretty, no reason, just pretty. I'm going to select that text, and now your ability to put a box around something is in your paragraph group. So that's on your Home tab of the ribbon. It takes a while to get, memorize where things are on the ribbon. But in your Home tab on the ribbon, here under your paragraph group, on the bottom right-hand corner of the paragraph group, I have my borders and shading. And I can put a full border around it. I want to have border on an outside border. So I can put an outside border. So now I have a box around it. And maybe I also want to have color behind it so it really pops out. So again, I can go back to my borders and shading. Your borders are just sitting here. Your shading, you have to go down to the bottom where it says borders and shading. And then there's actually a tab up here in your borders and shading window. It's the third tab, or the one on the far right that says shading. And you just change your fill to whatever color. I think I'm just going to do a light. And then, of course, you want to check your color contrast. I think that's probably good for color contrast, but I would need to double check that. Now, the one other thing that people sometimes tell me about the box text, and by the way, this is perfectly accessible. No problem with this whatsoever. The other thing that people sometimes say, well, the text is too close to the box. I don't like that. I want to have the text further away from the box. Okay, well, we go back under our borders and shading, back down to our full window, which is the bottom choice in your borders and shading menu there. It's kind of not really that noticeable, but down here in the bottom right corner, you have a little button for options. If I go to that options button, I can set my distance away from the text. It's called offset. I can set my distance from the text to whatever I want it to be and say okay. And then, again, takes some playing with it to get it to look exactly the way that you want. Turn off my hidden characters there. And there you go. Perfectly accessible. No problem with accessibility. You can make things look pretty much however you want. You just have to learn how to do it. You had to figure out text boxes too. It will take a little bit of playing with, but once you figure it out, you do not need to be limited into making things look particular ways by the accessibility. It really gives you a lot of freedom to do things however you need to do them. So summary for tables, mark your header rows. That's really the crucial thing. Suggest not having your rows break across the pages. Best to avoid merging cells. If you want a title on your table, just put the title outside the table. Put the title first and then start your table. Tables, not so good for layout. Like I told you, we can sometimes do a little bit of a workaround. Really better to use columns. For box text, you can just add that decorative border. It's a decorative border, not a box. Add that decorative border, add the color if you want, and then having that little table summary, the alt text on your table. Last thing that you need to do is put a title onto your document. The title is, and this is true in PowerPoint as well, it's under File Properties Title. So File is the far left tab on your ribbon. And right here, when it opens out to info, there's so much going on in this info window. In fact, it's almost too much, I think, because people tend to not see things in here. But over here on the right-hand side, under Properties, we have a title area. Yeah, no, why would you? It's like, who looks at all that stuff over there? Why do we need to add a title? We've already got a title on the document. Well, the reason that we add a title is so that when we take this out to PDF, PDF now has tabs. And when you have a tab open, it will pull that title onto the tab. So you can have just a short title as opposed to, there's some, especially federal governmental agencies often require a really long name up in the title bar that includes the pathway of where everything is stored and I mean all kinds of garbage. So this kind of gets around that. It may be that it's going to be the same as the actual title of your document, and that's okay. This is one of those things that's not so much made for us in education as for other people. I'm just going to call this test doc. Doesn't matter what you call it. While we're here anyway, we talked earlier about security. There's your big security button, protect document. So for those of you who want to put some level of security on your Word or PowerPoint files, that's where it is. It's under your info there. But we're going to go now to check for issues. That big, big button. Sometimes people can't see it because it's too big and we're looking for like some small text somewhere. That really big button that says check for issues, we want to click on that really big button. And when you click on that really big check for issues button, you will find now, as the second choice, you have Check Accessibility. This is true in PowerPoint as well, as an accessibility checker. So I'm going to choose Check Accessibility. Oh, got to get rid of my style so you can see it. As soon as I do that, the results come up on the right-hand side. And oh gosh, I've got more missing alt text because I had to restart my document. But it will show you all your missing alt text will come up here. Missing alt text on the table comes up. I have a table with no header row specified, and then it has tips. The tips are just informational. If all you get is tips, you're perfect. You've done a perfect job on your document. I wish it would like give you a gold star or something. People really want that, but it doesn't do that. Sorry. Now, I'm going to have to fix a couple extra alt text ones here. But when I click missing alt text picture 1, there's my bear. Now, remember how we get to the alt text. I'm going to right click on my bear. I'm going to open Format Picture. It brings open my Format Picture pane right next to my accessibility checker. This time I'm just going to put bear to save time. The fact that we don't have to save, now you're going to understand why that is such a cool feature. Because now I just click on the next picture I didn't have to save. It keeps the format picture pane open. I'm ready to just label my second graphic. And then you guys don't have the third one either, so there's my little starburst. I'm just going to call that a starburst. And then picture number 4, that's my sunbeams, which just got some weird extra letter in there. And then the next one, this is the one they said you should call this moonbeams to go with sunbeams, so that's moonbeams. Wait, table, I thought I did that. Oh, there's another table. I forgot that table. Okay, so missing alt text on the table. Notice it selects the table, so that means my table tools came up already. I can go to layout, I can go to properties, there's my alt text, and this is actually a real estate table, or real estate example, probably would be better. And then it says no header row specified. So again, I click where it says table, and look, it even marks the header row for me. So all I have to do is I'm still under Table Tools Layout, say Repeat Header Row, and I have completed the accessibility on this document. The checker in Word and in PowerPoint are really, really nice. They do a really good job. I don't think they check links, but they will check the other things that we went over. They'll check your images, they'll check your tables, they'll check the structure of your document. Are we ready to save it as a PDF? To save as a PDF. Now, you have on these computers, and maybe the whole campus has this as a site license, I don't know. Do you guys have Adobe Acrobat Pro for the entire campus, college? For faculty? Okay, perfect. That's, well, right now, that's all we're concerned with. You have an Acrobat tab on the top right corner of the ribbon. The Acrobat tab is a very nice tab. If I go to the Acrobat tab, right over here on the left-hand side, Create PDF, and you just create your PDF. That's all you have to do. Now, if you do not have that, if it's on your laptop or something where you might not have that installed, I can also go under File. I can do either Save as PDF, or I can just choose Save As, and then from my drop-down, I can say PDF. That's fine too. Any of those is fine. What you do not, everybody listening to me, do not want to do is print to PDF. If you print to PDF, you will strip out everything we just did. So save, save as, Acrobat tab, create PDF. For some programs, it's export to PDF. All of those are fine. Anything and everything except for print. So I'm just going to do it this way just to show you you can do it either way. And I'm just going to save this, and am I set to open? Yes, I'm set to open afterwards. If I were to read this, it would show you the headings, it would show you all of that. But if I really want to be super sure that I got everything, I can actually run now the PDF accessibility checker. You have to go to your tools and turn it on, because most campuses by default don't have it set up on your short list of tools over here. And it tends to be kind of way down. It's kind of this funny purple icon. Looks sort of like was that Da Vinci who did the man in the circle? Yeah. And you just have to click under accessibility, click add, and then it will be over there on the right-hand side. Now, this tool panel over here, by the way, you can collapse it and expand it with the little arrow there. This is drag and drop. So if you want to move these around, and on my home computer where I actually work on PDFs, I have mine moved around. I have accessibility up at the top. You just drag and drop, and you can put it in any order you want. If you've got one on here you don't want, like send for review, now I don't want that, comments, I don't want, fill and sign, you just hit the X, just closes it out. Very, very easy. Okay, so now that I've got my tools there, I can go into my accessibility tools, and I can say full check. If you have done all your accessibility work in Word, you're going to get these same 3 issues. You're going to get logical reading order. But notice it's a blue circle with a question mark. And what it's telling you is, I don't know about that. I'm not smart enough to check that. You have to manually check that, because I don't understand logical reading order. It will also always give you a question mark on the color contrast, because again, it does not check color contrast. And then it's going to tell you that you failed on the title, even though you put a title in. This is just a little bit of a bug. So all you have to do is click on it. Actually, I guess it's right click on it and say fix, and now you're good. It's kind of a weird, it's a setting actually in Adobe is what it is that has to be changed. So now I want to show you really how to use your list in other programs. In PowerPoint, the easy button with PowerPoint is stick with your themes. Where it says type here, type there. Where it says put images here, put an image there. Just go with where it says to put them there, rather than drawing your own boxes. Your own boxes are not accessible, I'm sorry. And if you designed using your own boxes, there's no easy button for fixing it. I'm really sorry about that, but there's just not. Now, people will sometimes say, well, the boxes are not the size I want, or the boxes are not where I want. You can resize those. So if I wanted to add something here, and it's like, okay, I don't like the size of this box, just change the size of the box. You know, no big. Just drag it wherever you want. They do give you a lot of choices too. I mean, it's here under layout. I will tell you that it will save you work if you leave them in the same order. So don't go switching them around, because if you switch them around, then the screen reader is not going to be sure what the order is, and then you're going to have to go in and fix the order, and that's kind of a bit of a work. I'm trying to make it easy for you. So, you know, just type where it says to type, and you're golden. Styles are applied automatically, so you don't really have to worry about that. I just went to the PDF Train the Trainer session for those of us who train on PDF, and they said this is not actually true any longer. Apparently you no longer have to use the title slide as the first slide in your deck. Although, honestly, I think I still will, because I want to have a title slide on my title deck. It used to be that applied the heading 1, but now they're saying, yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. But I would still recommend using a title slide. It's good practice. It's good design. But you can use other layouts as appropriate. Kind of the one tricky, weird thing with PowerPoint is each slide needs a unique name. So if you have multiple slides about the same thing, you just, you know, number them or whatever. But they do each need to have a unique name. You also, and this is a difficult thing for those of us like me, I'm constantly cutting and pasting from bunches of PowerPoints. I mean, I've literally got like, I don't know, I probably have 50 or more PowerPoints on my laptop. And I'll be taking, oh, I like the way I did that here, but I want that over there, and put them all together. That messes with the footer. It gets really confused. It doesn't know what to put in the footer anymore. And so sometimes you can end up with a blank text area in the footer, and you need to delete that. But it will find it when you run your accessibility checker, so just don't even worry about it until you run the accessibility checker, and then it's going to say unused text area. You just click on it, hit delete, click on it, hit delete. Very quick, easy go. Describing your graphics, exactly the same. Exactly the same as what we did in Word. Right click, it's going to bring up the area where you put it in. Again, ignore title, just put the alt text in the description area. On the newest version of Word, once you get it, it will only have description. So that will be taken care of. And then follow your list. So what does that mean? Remember, L is for your link names. Use logical link names. I is for images. Put that brief alternate text description on images. S is for structure. Remember, that's going to be the one that's the most different from program to program, because each program is different. So structure for PowerPoint, you want to use those built-in themes. Use that title slide. I still think it's a good idea to put that first. Give each slide a unique name. Watch out for those blank boxes in the footer. And then if you've moved things around in the slide, you will have to adjust the reading order. It will find that when you run the accessibility checker. Headers, frankly, my personal preference is, I think doing tables in PowerPoint, I can't say what I actually think because I'm being recorded. Delete, delete, delete is what I actually think about trying to do tables in PowerPoint. What I do is I do my table in Word, I make it pretty, take a screenshot of it, stick the screenshot into PowerPoint, and put alt text on it. And by the way, if you ever have any sort of really complex graphics, if you're using Photoshop, Illustrator, or something like that where you got a lot of layers to them, just flatten it. Take a screenshot of it, put alt text on that. That's the easy button for a lot of those more sophisticated design things, is just flatten it. And then, of course, your title, just like we did in Word, it's exactly the same. It's orange instead of blue, but otherwise it's pretty much exactly the same. Run your accessibility checker, and then deal with the issues. PowerPoint's actually really easy, as long as you stay on the reservation. It's really easy. If you don't, you're in deep trouble. All bets are off. Okay, let me talk about Canvas, because I know that's what a lot of you really want to know about, is Canvas. You're still going to follow your list. The links, there is a link tool in the rich content editor. I'm going to pull up Canvas course here in just a minute and show you. Your images, actually this is wrong, it's not insert images, it's embed images in Canvas. It has an alt text area. It also has a checkbox for decorative. You only need one or the other. It's a little bit, I think, non-intuitive the way that they have it set up, because they have the alt text first, and then they have the box that you can check for descriptive, long day for me too, decorative element. And so it looks like, oh, you just do this and then you do this. And then you go back in if you've checked your decorative box and you'll find your alt text is gone. So I think they could have done that a little bit better, but just know it's one or the other, not both. You do not need both. It's one or the other. All of your styles are under your paragraph tool in your rich content editor. Remember, Canvas reserves heading 1 for itself. It won't let you do a heading 1. Although I have brought in a styled document from Word, and it will bring the heading 1 in if you really wanted one. But there's no reason. You only need one heading 1 on a page. And then your tables has that beautiful table tool in your accessibility checker. Really, really nice. There, in your handout here, there's all sorts of links that I've given to you. These are some that we use in California, but there's also a very active user group for accessibility through Canvas itself. And I have been told they're very responsive and they do a really nice job. So those of you who want to become sort of nerdy about this. Also, there's links here to help you for more information, the actual guidance, the guidelines, but trust me, the list is easier. It's like, literally, it's like 15 pages of very difficult to understand stuff that when you boil it down is list. So you can kind of not worry about it. Do It has some really nice resources on their website, and WebAIM, I think I mentioned before, has some really nice, that's not for you guys. So here's a page in your Canvas course. Now, of course, in order to get to the underlying stuff under the hood, which is where the accessibility things live, I have to go to my Edit tab. So if you've got a course you've already published and you want to go back and fix any of this, you're going to go to your Edit tab to get into your HTML editor. One of the nice things about Canvas is it is based on HTML. HTML is made to be inherently accessible without doing a huge amount of work. Right here at the top of your page, kind of like the ribbon in Word, this is your rich content editor up here in Canvas. So there's my title on this page. Well, not mine. Somebody else did this, but thank you for letting me use it. That is your heading 1. It automatically is your heading 1. You don't have to do anything. It just is. It just comes that way. Now, your other headings, Canvas unfortunately calls headers, which is a misnomer. That's not the correct terminology, but you know, hey, if Microsoft can have smart quotes, I guess that Canvas can have headers. So if I want to make this a heading 2, which is really what it is, again, I just have, notice I'm just in here in my paragraph, I just click on it, and now it is a heading 2. Notice now, as soon as I do that, when I'm clicked in that text, it tells me over here that it's a header 2, or heading 2 is really what it is. So that is, again, we're on doing the structure here. How to do a link. So here I made one earlier just to play with it. So maybe I'm going to make another link here. Cats are fun. And maybe that's what I want to be my link. I need to find a website about cats. So let me find something about cats here. Doesn't matter what it is, except I don't want cat videos. Oh, here we go. All about cats, the film Cats. That works. That's fine. Okay. So copy my URL. Go back into Canvas. So again, the first thing you do is you select your text that you want to be the URL. Control K for link. So right there where it comes up, you have your URL. Notice it also has the title field here. This is where if you have to have a URL so that it can be seen, then you can put the title in there to show where am I going? What am I going to get? And then the screen reader will read that. It's weird and weird. It should be alt text or label, but whatever. Okay, so now I have this the link there. Images. So here I have this image of Sleepy Cat. And if you've already got an image in, you have to go back to your embed image. It's a little bit non-intuitive. It's like, well, I already put the image in. Well, you still have to go to embed image. So you have a choice here of putting an alt text or decorative, and this is where I was saying that it looks kind of like maybe you have to do both because the alt text comes first, but it's one or the other. So if I want to actually describe this image, I can just say Sleepy Maine Coon Cat, which is what it is, or if I just want to mark it as decorative, then I can mark it as decorative, either way. You do have to say update then to actually update it. Now let's see, do we get a mouse over with Canvas? No, you don't get a mouse over. Oh, well, wait, I haven't published it yet. Right, I haven't published it yet. Word's kind of like that too. You can't see it in Word. Okay, structure. So again, your structure just comes from using your styles, which are over here in under paragraph on your rich content editor. You've got your, now unlike Word, you've got your list styles up here. I assume those actually make a style. I'm almost positive they do. Yeah. So you would use those. Word, you don't want to use those because it's just formatting, but here you can go ahead and use those. So that's really it except for tables. Okay, let's put in a table. We apply it and we go to the next one and it says no header. So I'm going to say, oh look, I have a header row and a header column. Boom! It gives me balloons. I know, I like that about Canvas. It does. Yeah, it is. Adobe's like very businesslike. So there you go. You've learned your list. You've learned how to use it in all the different programs that you, well, maybe not all. Some of you might be using InDesign. That's more complex. But most of the programs that you're using, certainly Canvas, PowerPoint, and Word. So thank you. You managed to hang in there the entire 6 hours. I think you all, deserve a little pat on the back or something. So I'm happy to answer questions if anybody wants to stay, but I don't want to keep people who don't want to stay. So thank you all for your attention.